So hats out to you because this is like a therapy session you're giving people. You know what I mean?
That's good.
Yeah.
Ding. All right, it's Walt here, the CEO of For Life. I'm here for another episode of Talks for Life, and I have some amazing guests with me as we talk about a father's presence. We're going to dive into some questions as it pertains to our relationship with our fathers, and not only that, our relationship with our Heavenly Father and how our relationship with our fathers has affected us as adults now. And so I'm going to introduce who we have here for conversation. We have Clarissa Barnes here. We just call her Rissa, though. This is Rissa. We have Minister Barry Williams, who is a Howard grad.
Okay.
What's going on?
HU, the real.
Real
Somebody
HU.
might be mad.
Yeah.
Do we have Terrence Pittman here?
What's going on, everybody?
All right, so all of them, I have known them for a long time. Terrence is my cousin, so I've known him my entire life. He knew me before I knew myself. Minister Barry, we served in ministry together, about 6 years ago?
Yeah, 6 years ago.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And so we're still good friends. And then Rissa, oh my goodness, we grew up at Ebenezer together, childhood friends. And so, we've been through some things, and we've seen each other go through some things. So I'm excited to have all y'all here, but we're going to jump right into the questions. So this first one is for anybody. Anybody can answer this. Actually, I want all of y'all to answer it, but it's no specific order. So, just however you want to jump in. So my first question is, what is the background of your relationship with your fathers? What is the background relationship with your fathers?
Well, for me, my father's been present all my life. It was rocky. I'm gonna say the first probably 20-some years because it was a back and forth type thing. Our relationship started to get better once I decided to stop with holding in a lot of my feelings from when I was young and bring it to his attention. And for me, it released a lot of anger, it just led to a lot of mistakes that I made in the younger part of my life. And it was just a blessing to be able to finally get to that place, to be able to let him know how certain things made me feel. And, it's definitely helped a lot with me and my child today, just because of the things that I didn't have or I wanted more of when I was young. I make sure that I give that and more to my child. So that's kind of just a gist of me and my father. But right now we in a wonderful place. So.
Anybody else?
I think for me is I was raised by my mother and grandmother. My father was present, but it wasn't consistency. So he was there at times. I did spend a lot of time with him. He owned his own construction company, so I was able to get a few trades in from him here and there, but it wasn't nothing like consistent, like every day, every week, but he was present. So it was very random moments, and then moments you go, we're just hanging out with mom, and then moments you go, he's here, you know what I mean? Because my parents divorced at an early age, I think I was like 3 or 4 years old. He was there, but it was not as consistent. Yeah, so I did not grow up in the household with my father. Yep.
For me, from when I was a baby till when I was in like 5th grade, I lived with my mom and my dad. And it was kind of like a rough time because my dad has a drinking problem. So we dealt with a lot in the house, and when he didn't drink, he was the best person that you can meet. But when he did, it was like a demon that he was wrestling with. But now that I'm older, I kind of understand what he has been through. So it makes me understand why he has a drinking problem. Now our relationship is totally better. So I thank God for growth because a girl needs her dad. And he wasn't there after the divorce, it was like, he would always tell me, my brother, that he didn't divorce us. He divorced my mom, but it felt like he divorced us. So,
yeah. And to give it back to Terrence, I always thought that you and your father had the best relationship, because it's amazing how when you are not in it, what your perception is, you know what I'm saying? And so my perspective was, y'all were dope. Like, that was an ideal thing, because my father was present, but he wasn't always present. So he was in the household, you know what I'm saying? There were times where he wasn't, and you know, there were times where he was, but he still wasn't, you know what I'm saying? And so, like, for you all, it wasn't until literally after college where picked up the phone and said, let's have a conversation, and that's where a true relationship, where I really got to know who my father was. I had an idea, but I did not know him until I got older. So that sounds like we all have the same story, you know what I'm saying? Which is incredible, because you look at someone and you think that their story is completely different. Or you look at someone and you feel like, oh man, they got X, Y, and Z, but really they could be walking the same road as you. So that's powerful. My next question is, how has the history of your relationship with your father impacted who you are today? Take your time.
I think having when he was present,
Yeah.
gave me the foundation of what a father could be. I don't have any biological kids, but I'm very, very close to my nieces. So I was always trying to spend some time with them and give them the idea of what a fatherly figure looks like. But I think, kind of like what Obama said, it was in his absence I grew my strength as a man. To know what does a man do, right? Growing in a household full of women, it was me to search out. You know, so my sister always had my mother to kind of guide her along the way. But in those moments, in those absences, it was always, how do I develop into this man? So I had a mentor who kind of helped always fill in that fatherly role, who was able to give me guidance along the way. And those questions you have as a teenage boy growing up, those questions you have as a male figure, you're able to at least ask those questions or even see the male's presence. Because I do think that a woman can raise a son, because my mom did it. But I think there is aspects that as you develop into this man, this next level, that a male does need his father figure. So I do give a shout out to my mentor for stepping into that role.
Yeah. I would say a mother can instruct a child, but a mother can't raise a man. You know what I'm saying? She can give you instructions on what to do, but she's not a man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So she can't tell you what it's like, hey, when you get to this point of life and this is the situation, because your emotions are completely different, your hormones are completely different, your makeup is completely different. But definitely mamas, they're dope. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? They pick up the mantle and they do the best they can. But the fact that you had a mentor, I think that is huge. Like, that is so huge, because we have a lot of young men who don't have fathers, and they don't have one. You know what I'm saying? So then they, like you said, they try to find that figure, but it's not necessarily the right one. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's good. Amen.
So for me, one thing my father always said to me from, I'm gonna say maybe like 8, 9 years old, he always said, I'm raising a man, you're gonna be a man a lot longer than you'll be a boy. So his way of, I guess, showing, when I was younger, I used to always look for, because seeing it in school, you'll see other boys, fathers coming to pick them up, things of that nature, you know, giving them congratulations and things like that. I didn't necessarily have that, I guess, support system from my father that I wanted. So, you know, growing up, it was, you know, like he said, he had to seek out how to be a man. Like, even though my father was in my life, there were a lot of things that I had to figure out by trial and error. You know, I had male figures in my life, but I didn't have that male figure from a young age that I could actually, I take it back, I did. My uncle, he was somebody that for a while that, you know, I don't know how this may come off, but I looked at him a lot of times more as my father than my own father, and this was his brother. So, you know, those those things. But one thing it did, how it helped me in today, again, is just making sure that, you know, I'm on point with being a father myself. Just because I just know the feeling of the absences that I know what it felt like as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have a son, I have a daughter, and I know a lot of females whose fathers weren't in their lives.
Yeah.
And like she said, it's important for a girl to have a father in their life, you know what I'm saying? Because you're the first male that she falls in love with.
Yeah.
So if you're showing her the right things, you know, from growing up, she's going to look for that as she gets older. So, you know, my father, he helped me, he showed me the things that I don't want to be, but then I also took a lot of good qualities from him as well, you know what I'm saying? Just, so overall, that's pretty much how it's guided me into who I am today.
That is dope. Like that, you said a whole lot right there. And what I like is there is, how can I put this? It's a tragedy whether you're a male or a female and you don't have your father. It's both tragic.
Mm-hmm.
One is not worse than the other. They are equally disheartening. You know what I'm saying? And so you understand that even though I don't have a son, but I still understand my impact to my daughter being her father. It's huge.
And can I say something too?
Yeah.
I think what your father told you about you'll be a male man longer than you will be a boy.
Yeah.
That I mean, that's a powerful statement.
Yeah.
But then you also analyze it and say, but just how important that raising that boy stage is.
Yeah.
If I'm going to live my life more as a man, but I didn't get a chance to develop in the boy stage, then that's going to affect my manhood.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times I have to play catch up in the manhood stage.
Yeah.
And so that's just so much where we see a lot of brokenness going on.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And real quick, just to piggyback off of that, like he said, I'ma say, I know it's different nowadays, but I was forced to take the bus and the train by myself at the age of 10, 11 years old, just because of just building that tough outer shell of like, all right, I'm not no little boy, you know what I'm saying? I gotta grow up faster than I guess what I should have. I'm thankful for it now today though, because it allowed me to be so self-efficient. You know what I'm saying? I guess it was a gift and a curse. I don't depend on anybody. You know, now granted, it hurt me in certain relationships just because of that. Just always like, it's just me against the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely looking back on it, you know, like he said, you do need to go through that boy stage in order to really understand, like, just so that you're not missing out. There's no gaps in between going from a baby to a man. You're able to be a child and, you know, things of that nature. So.
And that boy stage is important because we are nothing but adult children. So if you don't learn it in a child state, you are an adult child with those same broken areas, those same void areas, those same issues that weren't resolved when you were a child. And it's a lot of adults that are living as big children.
That's true.
A lot of us.
Man.
You got anything? She was like, absolutely.
I'm listening to y'all. I'm like, that's good. I don't know what to say now. That's good.
Okay, yeah, I mean, they said it, you know what I'm saying? It's so many things that y'all said, and it's true. And I think a lot of times with fathers, we're not able to have these conversations. You know what I'm saying? Because our fathers didn't get that as a boy. And so because they didn't get it, they didn't have it to offer. And so now we're trying to get something that they weren't equipped with. And the whole process is jacked up. And so, but it takes a certain mindset, it takes a certain male, female, woman, man, whatever you want to put it, to change the cycle of time. And it's like, okay, we not doing this no more. You know what I'm saying? And I think that has happened at this table. You know, all of us have made a decision. We're not going to repeat that. We saw the effects, we saw the negative aspects, and how we had to grow up a lot faster because of the lack of, you know what I'm saying? And God does all things well, so he takes the good, the bad. All things work together for our good, but how much further would we be if we didn't have to play catch up? You know what I'm saying? How much further would we be along in our finances if we were taught? That's one thing that I can't stand, and I'm gonna say it, especially for the black community, is we don't teach financial literacy. I don't even know why we even going here, but that is something that we don't learn how to do. Everybody tell you go to school. If you go to school, then you accumulate all this debt. And so you starting off in debt. You know what I'm saying? Because nobody told you how. And so I ain't gonna get into all that. But anyway, so our next question is, how does the relationship with your father shape your relationship with God, your Heavenly Father? So look, based on your relationship with your father, I'm gonna start with you, if you don't mind. Based on your relationship with your father, how did that have an impact when you made the decision of getting saved and trusting God as your father?
Okay. I think because my father wasn't there, for times when I needed him the most, like when I had my first heartbreak, I needed my dad to tell me, baby, it's gonna be okay. But instead of me having my dad, I prayed.
Yeah.
That's all I knew how to do. Even when I fall into problems now as an adult, I don't lean on like my parents. I lean on God, because that's the only one that I know will help me out, honestly. So my dad not being there, it kind of made me feel more dependent on myself. So like what you were saying earlier, you said something earlier about, I forgot.
It's okay, because I'm looking at you like what I say. I don't even remember.
But anyway,
It'll come back.
Anyway, me not having my father made me realize that, like, I don't want to fall into the trap of my husband not being there. So it makes me scared to fall in love with a guy and he not be there for my kids. That's something that I always had to worry about in my head. But as I'm getting older and I'm trusting God more, I'm leaning on him, leaning on his understanding, not my own.
Yeah.
So.
That's good. That's good. And the fact that you realize that area spot, you know what I'm saying, that issue, and you're like, okay, I own that that's an issue. That's the first thing, is realizing I have an issue in that area. You know what I'm saying? Because we're going to get to that segue in a minute. But the fact that you acknowledge, okay, this is an issue, and now you want to attack it, that's huge. Because a lot of people will use what you did not have as an excuse to behave a certain way or to react to life a certain way. But you know, and I believe this becomes from your relationship with God, understands, okay, yeah, I did not get that. But that does not mean that I get to just hover that and just hoard it and live life with that anger and that, you know, frustration of, well, I'm not going to let you in because I never saw it. You know what I'm saying? And so, and it's a journey. It takes time to get there. But the fact that you said it, that's huge. It's huge.
I think for me is I go back to the, as I said earlier, the consistency and then the inconsistency. As a believer of God, sometimes we feel God's presence, right? More days than we feel on other days we don't.
Like where he at?
And where he at.
Yeah.
And that's the parallel of the relationship that I had with my father.
That is good, Barry.
I felt his presence when he was there.
Yeah.
But when he wasn't, I was seeking it.
Yeah.
And so when I realized how
that's good, Barry. Set it up.
I realized that in his absence is where I seek God.
Yeah.
Right? And so I felt when he was there, and I felt the embracement, I felt the attributes he was giving, I felt the covering, the leadership, the authority as a male's presence. But when he removed himself, that's when I had to seek.
Yeah.
And so that's the parallel of how to have my relationship with my father lines up with my faith, is when he's not absent. But he is absent. Where do I seek? And so that's why I found my seeking, my hiding place was in God.
Very. That's a good one. Listen, I mean, the Bible says, seeking you shall find, knocking the door shall be opened, asking it shall be given. So even with God, sometimes it feels like he's absent.
Yeah.
Sheesh. And so because you went through that with your earthly father, you understand that even though I have to seek him, don't mean that I can't find him.
I can't find him. Absolutely.
Well, that is it.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna just tell you right now, I'm gonna use that. Because that is good, because it's true, you know what I'm saying? With any parent, you know what I'm saying? especially with God, you know, we know that he's ever present, right? He's here, there, everywhere at the same time. But sometimes it's not that he's far, we are. And I think that's the difference between with your earthly father and your heavenly father. God is never not there. But sometimes with life, it pushes or pulls us away. And then we have to get back in the place of seeking him. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But the parallel that you just created was phenomenal.
The question was, how did our relationship with our father? Okay. So for me, I never seen my father as a huge praise of God. So that part of it, I didn't see it until I got older. But going to your point where, how you say you use it as an excuse for the things that you do, for a long time being fully transparent, the different things that I seen my father do growing up, I emulated those things because, you know, I'm like, I want to be like my father.
Absolutely.
So I made a lot of those mistakes, and for a long time I used that as an excuse. Now, to be honest with you, I had to go to church when I was young. I was forced to go to church. I wasn't one of those ones
You're the
from
same
young
family as me.
where I was just like, oh, you know, I grew up and,
Yeah.
you know, church was not, it wasn't. I'm not
Yeah.
even going to
Yeah.
sugarcoat it. But I felt like I started to become closer with God in 2012 when my daughter was born. And I felt like a lot of my past transgressions, he set me down and opened my eyes to where that's when I started listening to him more. So, you know, you know, now I know that a lot of my blessings, it's not a coincidence. I know that the man upstairs, he never sleeps. He always has an eye on everything. So it was more so my mother, you know, that pretty much pushed me in that direction to be, you know, my father didn't really have an imprint in that regard as to getting closer to God, but he did allow me to know, like, okay, this is the direction that I want you to go in, and I just started to listen. That's really what it was. Like you said, he's been there. It's just that I was so far away. So that's pretty much my, you know.
So would you say that with your relationship with God, he filled the places where there was a void?
Looking back on it now, yes. I didn't see it in the moment.
Yeah.
But definitely, he was the one that filled a lot of those fatherly voids that I didn't know was being filled by him.
Yeah. Because I mean, when you are first introduced, you know, to God in your relationship, it's like, you know, you're excited, and then it gets real. And then it's like, okay, if you say I'm the head of your life, here we go. And so, you know, when people get saved, it's like the first couple of weeks or months, it's just you know, God is great. I just love it.
Yeah.
Honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
And then God like, okay, let me take you through this.
Yeah.
Because then you have to see me as Father, you have to see me as Lord, and we don't remind people of that. We say, you know, He's our Savior. Yeah, that's the very beginning. But He needs to be Lord. Lord means I do nothing without talking to Him about it. And so when you don't have a father and you're not used to doing that, when you're not used to submitting to authority, it's tough. But once you submit and you realize, man, if I submit, He got me, then those holes that were not filled by your earthly father are now being filled by Him. And so I just love that you realized that when you did receive Him, it wasn't at first, but as your journey, you know, went forth, then you were able to see Him, you know, directing you and filling those places where you need Him to be. So that's dope. This is good, y'all ready? Okay. All right, so we have a few questions that I'm going to direct specifically to each person. So we're going to start off with Terrence. I know you just finished talking. It just happened to be you was the first person I thought about when I was writing this. So what impact does your relationship with your father have when it comes to your relationship with your daughter?
Everything. Again, like I said before, the things that I wanted, I missed out on, or I seen other people that had, I made sure that when I had a kid, I'm going to make sure, like you said, I'm going to be present, but I'm going to also be present. So it's I mean, in a nutshell, I mean it's everything, man. Like everything that I am to my child has everything to do with what I wanted and I didn't have as a child. And I want to make sure that she knows, like, regardless of what, like, her father's always going to be with her, right, wrong, indifferent, you know. Like, I'm a teacher, guide her, and hopefully as she gets older and becomes a woman, you know, certain things that we get lesson things told to us as kids that we might not catch on or take it in when we're young. But as we get older, it goes back to, like, that's what they were talking. I get it now. Yeah. So, you know,
those seeds.
Yeah.
That's what I love about when you look back at your childhood. That is an example of seeds being sown. Mm-hmm. They don't produce until you become an adult, because it wasn't for you to get it right then and there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And life is the water. Listen. Life is the water to the seeds that we get as kids, but if you don't get those seeds, you're watering nothing but dead grass.
Yeah.
Because there's no seed.
That's a word.
You know what I'm saying? So that's dope. That's dope. You know. Howard University is in that. I was like, no. But so for Barry, it's a perfect segue. What impact does your relationship with your father have when it comes to serving in ministry?
Serving in ministry. One thing about my father I would definitely say is that he is someone who's definitely not fearful. He's definitely someone who will go against the grain. Someone who I have seen lift certain things, build certain stuff. He is someone who's a visionary. When it comes to ministry, by him being this non-fearful person, it always reminds me of what's the story of Moses and Aaron. Yeah. And the first thing when God speaks to him in Exodus, he tells him, he says, hey, I want you to go to Egypt and set your people free. Yeah. And he says, take the rod, and the first thing I want you to do is I want you to throw the rod on the ground. And the rod turns into a snake. Right. And the first thing Moses does is he jumps back because he's fearful. And next thing he says, pick it up. Yeah. And so when I think about it, and the thing he does is he picks up the rod, the snake, and it turns back into a rod. And it transforms him in that moment. And that's one of the first signs of transformation. And so looking at this guy who I've seen as a father figure, my father, as being this person who's not fearful. When I go into ministry, whether it's big or small, a deliverance service, I don't find myself fearful behind the sacred dance. I find myself as a moment of picking up this snake that would turn into a rod, and it'd be a transformational setting. So I see myself as the rod. That it can be transformed, but I can't be fearful to pick it up. No.
Listen, that is good. That is good. That is good. In a lot of times in ministry, you see the person, right? And when they talk about being in ministry and serving, they really talk about how their relationship with their parents or the lack of has affected them in ministry. You know what I'm saying? Because if you, let's just use this as an example, if you weren't ever affirmed as a child, right? And then you preaching, you're trying to fill that void of affirmation, it might happen every once in a while, but it ain't gonna be always. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. So then you find yourself trying to go after the thing that you're missing instead of doing the assignment that you're called to do. And so that's why I asked that, because one thing I know about you is you are 100% okay being you. Like, that's what I love about you, is you don't try to be like anybody else. You don't try to preach like anybody else. You don't try to teach like anybody else. You don't try to dress like anybody else. Barry is Barry. You know what I'm saying? And that also goes back to your story. Moses was Moses.
Absolutely.
With his flaws and all. You know what I'm saying? He was who he was, you know. And so I think that attributes to who you are 100%. And you are definitely fearless. Because there's some stories that I know that you know you kept it moving. You know what I'm saying? All right. So my next question is for Rissa. What impact does your relationship with your father have when it comes to your relationship with men?
I knew
you knew I was going there. Yeah, you did. Only you can answer this.
You know, I hear my dad say even now, like, I love you. He said it all the time. But a part of me felt like his actions wasn't matching his words. So I think I seeked in men that love that I didn't get from my father. So a lot of times, you know, I stuck around in relationships when I knew I should have been gone because I thought that was love. Or I stuck around in relationships when I felt like I really wasn't feeling it, but I stuck around for the person, you know? And I realized that that's the same thing, that's the same effect that my dad had on me. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
So, when it comes to relationships,
It's okay.
I think that I'm still learning.
I would say all of us are. I don't think you ever get it.
And I don't even want to put it all on my dad not being
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I'm saying? I just think as a woman growing up, I'm just still learning.
Yeah.
So it's hard to like blame him for everything because again, I have a way better relationship with him now. So it's hard to open up old wounds.
Yeah.
And I don't want to bash him like he
Yeah.
was not there or he just
Of course.
he's to blame for why my
Yeah.
relationships is not
Yeah.
the way it's supposed to be because he's not. But I think I needed him to tell me a man's perspective, to let me know, you know, well maybe a man is thinking this and not that, and I didn't have that.
Yeah. And that was more of my angle is missing the wisdom of a man.
Mhm.
So that when you encounter one, you be like, I kind of see where you're going. That's a negative. I'm out. You know what I'm saying? And then if you see the positive wisdom, we can get with this. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody's going to have some type of flaw. Because everybody has a past before they get to their present. And so, you know, what I try to do is I try not to judge people off of their past. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't know you then. It don't really matter to me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, giving you the benefit of the doubt that this is a new situation. I'm new to you, you new to me. Let's grow together. And I would even say, you know, for me, you know, without my father, I did not know how to properly communicate to a woman how I felt.
Because he wasn't.
Because I didn't see it with my parents. I saw arguing matches, but that's not communication because ain't nobody hearing nobody. Communication is what we're doing now. Y'all hear what I said, then you piggyback off of what I said and you give it back to me, you know, whatever your perspective is, whatever the case may be. But I did not see that. So when I first started dating, it was just like, I would just get quiet because I don't have nothing to say. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times with men, if we don't feel, how would I say, that comfortableness or that safe haven, our goal is to retreat. You know, y'all look for love, we look for, can I be safe here? You know what I'm saying? Can I be vulnerable and it's not going to kick me in the butt later? You know what I'm saying? So the moment...
men in this room right now.
I'm just saying, it's true.
What he's saying is so true. And just to go off of your point, there's a lot of females in my family on both sides that they haven't had their father in their life, and unknowingly to them, a lot of times they end up getting with and picking men that are a lot like their father.
Just like them.
But they don't know.
No.
And of course, I see it because I'm on the outside looking in. But then also too, me being a lot like my father, you know, the whole womanizing thing, you know what I'm saying? Like you said, playing catch up. That phase is just kind of, you know, you don't really, you know, for a female, she doesn't know, like, okay, she might, like, okay, my father's not here. And then, like, your mother might say, oh, she meet a guy, oh, he's just like your father. But you like, I don't know what my father was like, because if he wasn't there, how am I know what somebody's like, you know? So it's just, it always mind boggles me, I guess, because I've seen it from females in my family that they end up picking a guy that kind of emulates a lot of the qualities that their father had. That is just, it always was mind-boggling to me.
You go ahead.
I think that's crazy that you say that, because I had someone tell me that before, like, you're going to pick a man that's just like your dad. And in my head, I'm like, that's not going to happen. Because I feel like I'm running for a man that's like my dad, the bad qualities of him. Like, I'm scared to, when I see a man drinking a lot, I'm like, I don't know, he might have a drinking problem. So that's already a red flag for me.
Yeah.
You know, I look for the bad qualities that I seen in my father, I look for those in my potential man. And if I see those, I'm like, I don't want to mess with it.
And could it be it's because we don't know the positive aspects of our father? So that attraction could be because there is some positivity there, but because we don't know what that is, all we see is the bad. You know what I'm saying? And so we are attracted to the very thing that we want, even though we don't know it. Does that make sense? And so I definitely can concur. You know, even like in my relationship now, Caprice reminds me so much of my mother. And sometimes it irritates the living
Not to
crap out of me.
but I've always heard that they say for a man, I'm gonna say about 70 to 80% of the woman that you end up spending the rest of your life with is gonna be a lot like your mother. And I didn't realize that until I met my wife.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I stepped back and was like,
Yeah.
but it's a blessing though.
Yeah. But see, it's a
blessing.
blessing because we know the positives of our mother.
Yeah.
So when you don't know the positives of your father and you're attracting it, it's like, oh, this is all bad. No, it's only bad because you don't know the positives. Because our mothers ain't perfect either. You know what I'm saying? But that attracted me to her, but at the same time I was like, dang, I'm still with my mama. You know what I'm saying? But like you said, because I know who my mom is, you know, I love that. Because there's certain things that she does, I'm just like, dang, you know what I'm saying? Did you hear my mother talk to me earlier? You know, she'll say like certain things to remind me of things and, you know, to keep me on track and stuff like that, just like my mother used to do. It irritates me because I'm like, I got it, but they can't help it. You know what I'm saying? They're helpmates. I ain't gonna get into that. But, you know.
I do want to say, because you made a point of, like, you'll never get it right? Until you learn it, right? And I think that's so true in what you're saying. And I'm not, churchy, but I do go back to, my faith is a huge thing for me. So I go back to the story of Jesus. He was someone who was sold out for Christ, gave his life, one of the most spiritual people, persons who ever walked the earth. And no matter how many scriptures he know, he still chose a Judas, right? Yeah. He still chose someone who would betray him in the end. But then when you look at his lineage, where he comes from, there was David in his family too. Yeah. And it was the unknown that he ended up choosing. Yeah. David was someone who betrays his own soldier. He sends him off into the war. Absolutely. And he, just so he can sleep with his wife. Yeah. And so when you bring it all the way back down the line, Jesus chooses a Judas, right? Yeah. Because it was that unknown that he didn't even realize he had in his blood. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to you are literally a product of your bloodline. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes you pick things that has happened 10 years ago with somebody else. You know what I'm saying? And now it's happening in your own life. But the goal is to change your perspective. So with Jesus, I need Judas to get to the cross to save the world. You know what I'm saying? So he changed the perspective because in our mind, why would you pick Judas? Why would you have a friend that will betray you? You know what I'm saying? But Jesus is like, I need you. You really need me more than I need you, but your betrayal will set me up for what I need to do. So if we change our perspective of those who have that, negative connotation and realize, oh no, I can use that. You know what I'm saying? Because Judas was a part of the core. You know what I'm saying? And I believe every team needs a Judas.
Absolutely.
You can't have it without it. Because Judas, they might talk about you, but they'll also give you exposure. And you don't have to worry about Judas because Judas is going to take care of himself, which is what he did. He sold him, but then he committed suicide because he couldn't handle what he just did. And so you don't got to worry about Judas because they literally don't have no power.
Mhm.
They're literally just helping you out, so I think that's dope. I think that's dope. But I think your answer is good, and I love that you said that you are not gonna open up old wounds that are healed. That is big, because a lot of times when we hit the roadblocks in life, we try to pick up them things that used to
Just
be,
been under that carpet.
you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And then we justify why I should feel this way, because this happened to me. No. If you healed and you delivered, why are you still going back to pick that up? You know what I'm saying? Jesus he didn't die on the cross and save us, and then have to say, oh, well, let me go back and save you again. No, I saved you, it's done. There's no need to go back and redo it again, you know what I'm saying? So I commend you for having that relationship with your father now, and I really believe that that is the blessing that is going to lead you to find who he is. And really, you ain't going to find him, he going to find you, because the Bible says, he that findeth a wife, you know what I'm saying, finds a good thing. You leave your mother, your father, and you find her. That's what the Bible says, and so really, you shouldn't go looking for him. God has set it up. He's a perfect setup.
It's gonna come.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, all right, so this is for all of y'all, that we're gonna wrap this up. I can talk to y'all for hours, but we're gonna wrap this up. What would you tell your younger self to help you understand where you would be now as it pertains to your father? I want me to repeat it. Yeah, that's a real question. Take your time.
So for me, what I would tell my younger self is don't use it as a crutch. Because a lot of times when you use, the things that you wanted and you missed, you hold on to it for so long, and when you should have let it go or healed from it, you kind of carry it a lot longer than what you should have, which will affect your progression in life. So, some people get it early, some people get it late, some people never get it. I was fortunate to get it a little later. But yeah, that's what I would tell my younger self is don't allow it to be a crutch for too long.
That's good.
That's definitely good. Definitely good advice. That's something I use for my own self, that crutch piece. I would say forgive them for the unknown, right? Is understanding now, and understanding that everyone fights their own demons. Everyone is battling something that we don't know what they're battling. And in that moment, you may not understand. But as you get older and through conversations, you realize that this person may have been experiencing something that they could not be this person you wanted them to be. And it's okay to understand, as you get older, to forgive them for the things that they could not do. Even though you wanted him to be present, and you wanted him to be in that moment, he was not in that space to be in that moment.
Absolutely.
And so forgiving them for that is therapy for yourself. But it's therapy for your mind, for your spirit, and it even frees you so that you can be able to have a new relationship with your father. And then be able to have that relationship, like you're saying, with your child. Yeah, but definitely forgive them for that, I know.
And that I can't help but go here. But Jesus on the cross, he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Shortly after that, he ascended to the Father. Right? Literally, just like you said, the moment he did that, he was able to reunite with his Father. So the moment you forgive the unknown, because that was me with my father, I had to forgive him because you did not know what you were doing, literally. I was your first child, you had no experience, you had me at a very young age, your father didn't teach you how to be a father, you were just winging it. You know what I'm saying? So understand that now as a man, it's like, yo, there was no way you could properly sit me down and have a conversation because nobody had it with you. So definitely forgiving them for the unknown. That is
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm putting that in the mental road
For sure.
For a lot of things, not even just pertaining to the.
You can use it on your job, you can use it in your marriage, you can use it wherever.
Because when you said it earlier about we were talking about financial literacy, and in the Black community, which I totally agree, because I just started an organization last week around student advocacy.
Nice.
And I think about, I'm reading this book called 400 Souls, and it talks about the dismantling of the Black community And so we have not taught our kids. It's because our grandparents didn't have the time. Why? Because they were battling Jim Crow and segregation and slavery. And then our parents grew up in the 60s and the 70s, right?
Yeah.
So they were battling a different type of things. And then here it is our generation to change the game, right? And so...
Because our battles ain't theirs.
Our battles ain't theirs.
You know what I'm saying? And our battles are not, I would say, as difficult as what theirs were. We have a cushion.
Yeah, we do.
They had the concrete.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And a lot of us are comfortable with the cushion.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't be.
Absolutely.
The cushion should be like, you know how you jump on a mattress? Spring up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But we have laid down.
Absolutely.
And man, listen. Right here, because that was good.
I mean, every time. I would definitely tell my younger self to find forgiveness in your heart and know that it's going to get better. Because sometimes when you're sitting in it, it's hard.
It felt like forever.
You don't feel like it's going to get better.
Yeah.
Because there's so much coming at you. But I think if you put in your heart to have forgiveness for when it's happening, then you're going to be all right.
I think that is so good. It always seems so long when you're in it. And
quicksand.
yeah, it just seems like time is slow and there is no assurance that it's going to get better. And I think what we have to do is you got to connect with God. Because with God, that is that sometimes untangible assurance that you have. Because sometimes when you look for things, you're going to miss it. Because it almost is never how you think it should look like. You know what I'm saying? But when you trust in Him, who moves His best in the unknown, that is how you have the assurance, okay, it seems like it's forever, but literally it's not. You know what I'm saying? Because one day to us is 1,000 days to you. So you already ahead of me, and you're here, and you're in my past all at the same time. So I'm going to be all right. That's good. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all so much for joining us. I just wanted to wrap up the conversation that we had with our amazing guests, Minister Barry, Clarissa Barnes, and my cousin Terrence Pittman. What a phenomenal conversation about a father's presence. But I can't leave you without some type of scripture reference to use as it pertains to this discussion. So if you can, just go with me to Psalms 127, and I'm going to read verses 3 through 5. And so it reads like this. Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior, so are the children of one's youth. Happy is the man who has his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but shall speak with their enemies in the gate. So what does that mean? So as a father, your children are your arrows. So if you ever seen a bow and arrow, there's a quiver in the back. It's like a backpack. So your father's job is to take the arrow out of the quiver, put it in the bow, and aim the child towards the enemy. Listen, some of us, all of us are designed to kill an enemy that our father is supposed to help us guide to kill. So all of us have a destiny, all of us have a goal to do in life, but our father's job is to pull us out of that comfortable place, put us in the bow, stretch us, and guide us to where we're supposed to do. So a lot of times we are fighting battles that we can't win because our father did not properly put us in the bow to shoot us to kill the enemy at the gate. There are enemies at the gate of our bloodline simply because our father lacked the ability to take us out of the quiver, put us in the bow, and to stretch and guide us towards the enemy's camp. So there's 3 different points that I want to use, and they're going to be real quick, and then we're going to be out of here. If your father is a pillar in your life, your father has understand that his job is to point you in the right direction. So if you have a father who's a pillar, he has taken you out of the quiver. He has put you in the bow. He's directing you where you're supposed to go in life. He shoots you and you are on your way. If your father is a missing piece, that means you are still sitting in the quiver even though now you're not a child. You are a full-blown adult, but you are still trying to figure out, what am I supposed to do in life? Because your father did not take the time to take you out of the quiver to stretch you. That stretching is to teach you. That stretching is to make you uncomfortable. That stretching is to show you what it is that you're supposed to do, so that when he shoots you and releases you into the world, you're able to kill the enemies that he was designed to kill, but that he can't because it's your assignment. But then what I love about God, God is a God, even if you're left in the quiver, if you become an arrow that becomes curious of who God is, he will then take you out of your own father's quiver. He then will put you in his bow, and he will set you up in the right place to attack every enemy that you're supposed to attack. And so that's just a quick setup as to why we talked about a father's presence. A father's presence is important because a lot of times we're sitting dormant because we don't understand what enemies we need to kill. And so if you don't have your father, that's why we have God. God is the Father of all fathers. He is our Heavenly Father. So you are not hopeless if you don't have your father. Whether your father was a pillar, whether he was missing, you have the masterpiece of fathers, and that is God himself. So I pray that this has been a blessing to you. To learn more information about For Life, you can go to www.forlifecoaching.com. You can follow us on all of our social media platforms at For Life Coaching. I pray that this was a blessing to you. If you received something from it, hit us up on Instagram or anything like that. I pray this was a blessing. Keep rocking with us, because I promise you we have more dope content to come. Thank you for being with us here at Talks for Life.